This is Sports Overdrive. Welcome back to Sports Overdrive on May the 9th, 2014. Taylor Jones with you on this, the second edition of Sports Overdrive. In our first show, we sat down with the LaGrange High baseball seniors as well as the Callaway baseball seniors. But our first guest today is not even from Troup County, not even from the state of Georgia, actually. Our first guest called in a couple of days ago from the great state of South Carolina. SEC tournament time getting very, very close to happening. 2 more weekend series for all the teams in the SEC. They'll have a Friday, Saturday, Sunday series this weekend, and as they do traditionally for the last SEC weekend series, they will have it Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So this will be the last Friday, Saturday, Sunday baseball series for everyone in the SEC. So I figured, why not we preview the SEC tournament? Our first guest, Neil White from GoGamecocks.com, specialty to thestate.com, which if you're in Alabama is kind of South Carolina's version of AL.com. He is a beat writer for South Carolina Gamecocks baseball. He's going to be on the show in just a second. I'm going to talk a little bit about Carolina baseball right now. Currently 13-11 in SEC play, third in the SEC East behind Florida and Vanderbilt. Their series this weekend will be at home against Missouri. And next weekend they'll travel to Nashville for a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series at Vanderbilt. Grayson Griner is their top hitter. He has a .340 average. He has 7 home runs as well as 55 hits and 46 RBI. Their relief pitching stats look like this. Cody Mincy, 24 appearances, .64 ERA. He has 1 save and 29.2 innings pitched. As for Joel Seddon, 21 appearances, .56 ERA, 13 saves, and 32.1 innings pitched. So without further ado, we'll talk more about Carolina baseball, about what they've done so far this season, as well as former Gamecocks who are currently in the major league. So joining us right now, here's the interview of Neil White from GoGamecocks.com, only on Sports Overdrive. Joining us now, representing the University of South Carolina baseball team, a baseball writer for GoGamecocks.com, it is Neil White. Neil, how are things in Columbia today?
It's a beautiful day in Columbia. It's going to reach 93 degrees, so I guess summer is here.
Yeah, thankfully it is. So the South Carolina Gamecocks, they're always known for playing tough, fundamental baseball, and for the past few seasons, at least, they've remained really high in the rankings under Coach Ray Tanner. But now this year, it's the Coach Chad Holbrook era, and Carolina still remains in the top 25. They won the first 16 games of the 2014 season, including a clean sweep of Clemson. What is the overall vibe around Gamecock Nation surrounding Coach Holbrook?
Chad's first season actually was last year, and they went to the Super Regional under him and lost in the final game. They're 1 game shy of going back to the College World Series for a 4th straight season, and Chad, I think, is way more comfortable this year in his role. In the second year, he was pretty much Ray Tanner's hand-picked successor. Ray brought him here from North Carolina, and he's been here since 2009, so it was pretty much a seamless transition in terms of him adjusting the job and knowing the players, because he'd recruited a large majority of the players that were here. So far, for Chad, pretty good, except for the string of injuries they've suffered here in the last 2 months, and they've really kind of had to play around those, and that's kind of taken a dent in their record. They were number 1 earlier in the year, and now they've slipped to number 17 in the latest Baseball America poll.
In the game last Saturday with Georgia, Jack Wincoop, he only limited the Bulldogs to 2 runs in 5 innings, and then Cody Mincy and Joel Seddon finished the game in relief. So how much of a factor do you feel that pitching will be into the final 2 weeks of the regular season?
It's huge for South Carolina, especially. They're very much pitching-oriented. The starting rotation of Jordan Montgomery and Jack Wincoop and Will Crow has been very solid all year, although Crow has slumped in the past few weeks. But they've got a tremendous bullpen. They've got a great 1-2 punch with 2 junior right-handers, Patrick Mincy and Joel Seddon. Seddon leads the SEC with 13 saves and has an ERA of 0.56. He's been virtually unhittable this year, and so really they are carried by their pitching. And if they play defense behind their pitching, then they're really good. And if they can just get enough hits, that's been the issue this year. The offense has been a little inconsistent, especially through SEC play, and that's put a little bit of a dent in their record. So the big thing is, if they can continue to pitch well, they'll remain in most games and have a fighting chance.
As far as hitting is concerned, South Carolina, they have a combined 27 home runs, 236 RBI, and they're hitting with, as a team, 280, with Grayson Griner leading a majority of those categories. So how special of a player is Grayson? Who else has made an impact in the hitting category this season?
Griner has clearly been their best player all year. He was one of the Team USA catchers last summer, and probably going to go somewhere in the first couple of rounds of the Major League Draft in June. And Grayson is about a 6'5", big, tall catcher, tremendous defender, terrific arm, and he's clearly been their most consistent hitter all year, especially in terms of driving and runs. Leads the team in home runs and RBIs, and now he leads them in average too. So he's kind of their go-to guy in the 4 or 5 spots in the batting order. Other guys have been a little more inconsistent. Kyle Martin, the first baseman, has done a nice job. He's batted to third or fourth most of the year, and Joey Pancake was hot for a while. Their third baseman, he's tailed off a little bit recently. The biggest thing that's really happened in that lineup is they've lost Max Schrock, their sophomore second baseman, and over the past month he's been dealing with an ankle sprain, and then he was sick for a while, and now he's got a stress fracture in his back, and that him not being in the lineup has made a huge difference in that ability to kind of turn it over, because he's a real run producer, and so they've really missed Schrock a lot in the last month and a half.
With you covering Carolina baseball this season, what other teams, in your opinion, you feel will have a deep run in the SEC playoffs? Who are some surprise teams you feel we should look out for?
I was impressed by Florida when they came through. And really, I think the thing that strikes me the most about the league this year is there aren't any teams like Vanderbilt a year ago when they won a league record number of games. There's a lot of teams that are very, very similar. Anybody could probably go to Hoover and maybe get through that tournament. I liked Ole Miss when I saw them. That's just a very, very solid veteran baseball team. There's a bunch of teams who could end up maybe making a run in that tournament and also making some noise in the NCAA tournament.
We're going to move on to former Gamecocks who are in the major leagues right now. Just looking back at some that are making a big splash now, including Jackie Bradley Jr., who was on the College World Series team a few years ago, also Brian Roberts and Justin Smoke. So who are some of the other former Gamecocks that are in the league now, and how have they done throughout the first month of the season?
Jackie Bradley has kind of pushed his way into the lineup, although he started a little high. He's down to about 215 or so now, but he's a plus defender, just a tremendous athlete. I think a lot of what Austin likes in him is what his ability to bring on the defensive side, and if he can just make the adjustments and pull that average up, I think he'll probably become a major league regular. Justin Smoke is clearly a key part of that Seattle team in terms of providing some power in the middle of that order, and Justin was always seen as a kind of a can't miss guy when he was here in Columbia, and he's been a little bit up and down since he's been in the big league, and they're hoping this will be his breakout year. There's not a lot of the guys who are playing every day. Brian Roberts, who played one season here in the late 1990s, has spent most of his career with the Orioles and now is with the Yankees, and he's gone through a ton of injuries in his recent career, and so trying to see if he can bounce back and replace Cano in New York is kind of tough duty. The Gamecocks have sent a lot of players. Michael Roth, who was their big gun pitcher on the championship teams, he is in Double-A right now, but he got a taste of the major leagues last season with a couple of call-up. They've got quite a few guys at various levels throughout the minor leagues.
Looking back at the roster this year, there's maybe 2, possibly 3 seniors this year that are on the team, so a lot of underclassmen. Who are some of the underclassmen for the Gamecocks this year that we should be looking out for as baseball fans in the future major leagues?
Griner clearly is to me their best player, and he's going to get drafted very high in June, probably in the first few rounds. In Pancake, the third baseman, and center fielder Tanner English, who's a speed demon, are both probably going to be drafted this summer, and at some point I'll expect them to sign. Jordan Montgomery, who's been their Friday night ace this year and last, has done a very solid job. He's not a hard thrower. He throws upper 80s, but great control, great poise, just a real winning presence on the mound. I expect him to be drafted. So they've got a number of guys, I think, who have the ability to go and won't be around next year. Coming back next year, they've got a couple of sophomores. Max Schrock, who I spoke about previously, the second baseman, has a ton of potential. is going to be probably, if he can get healthy, one of the better players in the SEC next year. And sophomore pitcher Jack Wynkoop, big, tall left-hander, 6'5", very, very poised and very polished pitcher, and he'll probably be one of the top arms in the league next year. He's doing a nice job this year. And freshman Will Crow is also a right-hander, very good pitcher, and he's had a terrific year in his first season, and I expect him to only get better and be a draftable type guy down the road.
We'll look ahead to this weekend. The Gamecocks, they'll welcome in Missouri in the Battle of the Columbias. Missouri currently sitting at 7th in the SEC East with a conference record of 6-18, 20-27 overall. So what can we expect to see from the Tigers this weekend?
You know, they've kind of scuffled. You know, the SEC is a tough league to come in and play, and they had some success in the Big 12 before they came over. But this is really a tough league to compete in, and they've certainly struggled. I know the Gamecocks are, at this point, looking at this as a must-win series for them in terms of keeping their RPI where it needs to be. And Gamecocks are 27-5 at home this season and always seem to play well here in Columbia. So I think they're looking at this as a series they've got to win, and it'll be interesting to see Missouri comes to town. They have to run a gauntlet nearly every week you get in this league, and there are no easy weekends. And I think they've learned that along the way over the past 2 years.
All right, Neil White, the writer for South Carolina Gamecock Baseball for GoGamecocks.com. He's joining us on Sports Overdrive this weekend. Neil, we want to thank you for taking time out of your day to talk Gamecock baseball with us. And me personally, I feel like I've learned a lot about this team just by talking to you, and looking forward to see what the Gamecocks do for the rest of the season. And, of course, we want to send good luck to Columbia throughout the SEC tournament as well as the NCAA tournament. And, again, thank you for talking with us today.
Sure thing, no problem. Glad to do it.
That was Neil White, South Carolina baseball beat writer from GoGamecocks.com, specialty to thestate.com. Just discussed South Carolina baseball, what all they've been able to accomplish so far this year, and other expectations heading into the SEC baseball tournament in Hoover coming up in the next 2 weeks. Be sure to check out South Carolina Gamecock baseball this weekend. They will be at home against Missouri, and next weekend they will travel to Nashville to take on the Vanderbilt Commodores in the final Thursday, Friday, Saturday series of the season, May 15th through the 17th. If you want to learn more about South Carolina Gamecock baseball, I would encourage you to go to GoGamecocks.com, read a couple of Neil White's articles, a lot of very informative information on that website from Neil White. Also, if you want to give him a follow on Twitter for even quicker South Carolina Gamecock news, his Twitter handle is @NeilAtTheState. That's @NEIL @TheState. We'll have more in just a few moments. This is Sports Overdrive.